Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Beckson. Today we're going to be talking with Matt Rosensteele. If you remember, Matt was back on episode 14. But before we get into Matt, I've had quite a few people asking me why I do these podcasts. So I thought I'd just kind of throw it out there so that you guys are aware. I've been helping people basically invest in this country for 17 years since I've been here. Again, the intricacies of investing in Costa Rica is always interesting, should we say, because there are lots of kind of laws and regulations, especially when it comes to building, buying land, and also, again, just giving people the advice and not making the mistakes that I've made over the 17 years, probably losing close to a couple of $1 million here, having built, constructed, overbuilt, overpaid, etc. So just trying to get that information kind of out there. If anybody does want basically to get my opinion or would like me to look at something or would like help investing here in Costa Rica, you can reach out to me directly, info@investingcostarica.com. That's info, INFO, @investingcostarica.com. Well, let's get straight into it with Matt. As you guys remember, Matt was on episode 14, and I thought it would be good to get him back on, get a bit of an update to see where the market is, trends that he's seeing, and what investments opportunities are in his neck of the woods. If you guys remember, for anyone listening to the podcast, Matt's actually based in Juquillal. This is between Nosara and Tamarindo. It's an area that recently got asphalt roads, has great infrastructure, has titled beachfront land, which you don't see often here in Costa Rica, great condos, and also villas. I think it's a great long-term investment play, as well as a good destination for anyone that's looking for a more kind of real and relaxed beach town. Remember, if you've got any questions for Matt or for me personally, you can reach out to us. You can also put stuff inside the comments. And please remember, guys, to subscribe and also give us some good reviews back so that we can spread this greatness on this podcast. Thanks, guys, and let's get straight into it. Good afternoon, Matt. How are you doing?
Amazing. How about you, Richard?
Very, very good. It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast. I was actually going through the podcast the other day, and I was like, you were episode 14. That was quite a while ago.
Wow. I was your 14th episode, and now it's 62?
62, yeah, I believe so. I keep losing.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. They've become pretty popular.
No, absolutely. It's always special to be invited on for the 62nd episode of something.
Oh, thank you very much. It is a special number. Well, let's get straight into it. It's been over 6 months probably since we last spoke. What have you seen in those 6 months? Have you seen a change in your customers? What are they buying? Give us an idea of what's happened in those 6 months and what has changed.
Yeah, well, I made a huge decision in May of last year to go independent. And in the 6 months, the second half of 2021, I was looking back at everything that closed in that timeline, June through December. In Juquillal, where I live, we're sort of known as this place that was traditionally attractive to retirees and very much, an older audience, generally speaking. Of the 21 transactions that closed in this area in that time period, you saw only 7 really retirement age people that came through me. And the rest were a mixture of somewhat younger, maybe they're 50 to 55 and still working remotely, a lot of families and some actually pretty young couples picking up different investments because they may have cash from their hugely successful career in the US. And now they're looking to diversify and also sort of set themselves up for a dream. And it's, you've got people like that buying and planning on moving their family down here.
I think you mentioned a good word there, which is diversification, which is, what I tell a lot of people basically about is, diversify your portfolio a little bit, outside of the US down here to Costa Rica, just because it's smart. We've got, inflation coming, some of that is probably not going to hit as hard down here as it will be in the US. But I think it's important to have a diversification in your portfolio, but what I'd like to call a lifestyle investment, which is you get to enjoy it as well. You don't really get to enjoy shares. You get to enjoy a Costa Rican property.
For sure. And I think there's definitely the continuing awakening of people who realize that life isn't just about waiting until you're 65 and you have an absolutely fixed pension and a stable income to be able to make it for the next 20 years. I think recently, especially with the pandemic and people's stress in general, you just see people ready to make life-changing decisions. And honestly, it's really, trying to look at in the crystal ball and guess where these investments will be valued, how much rental income people will be making next year. At this juncture, the only thing that we know is that it's pretty unpredictable and, volatile in that sense.
Yep.
But we can definitely tell people, getting yourself in front of more good weather, enjoying a relaxing lifestyle where maybe you're only working 75%, you're doing that remote, or maybe you've taken your kids to a place where you feel they're getting a better opportunities and really growing as human beings. And we'll see where the numbers land. I think nobody buying in now will never see another bumper opportunity to sell their property. There might be volatility ahead, but the best investors are going to be the ones that are patient, who are really buying in for that lifestyle, upgrade, who want to keep their property for the long haul and not necessarily hope to just make a great deal now and flip it in 2 years.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your prediction for 2022. I mean, I've started to ask this to people just because I'm just interested to see 2020. Well, we know what 2020 was like. It was very quiet. There was some stuff starting to happen, but our borders were closed until November. 2021 went absolutely nuts on the real estate front and investment front. I think it's probably the best year Costa Rica's ever seen. And I even say that just having spoken to people, better than 06, better than 07. Just stuff was just moving really, really quickly. I mean, but based on 2022, do you think it's going to slow down? Do you think it's going to speed up?
I always try to guide people what my perspective is and not be the one making the prediction, but instead informing other people's predictions. And when I'm talking to clients right now, I think that 2022, there's so much built-in momentum going from 2021. We have people that are just now arriving in Costa Rica who still are going to be closing these real estate deals in May, June, July, August.
Yep.
Right now, we're all still running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to keep up with the movement happening. There's lots of deals already in the pipeline. It doesn't look like for the next 2 months you're going to see anything slowing down here in Guanacaste. And so, looking at 2022, I feel extremely confident that by August, we will still have closed a lot of real estate in the area just based on this current surge.
Yeah.
September, October, November, December can be defined by whatever happens coming up in February, March.
Yep.
We've got a US government that can barely raise the budget limit every single time. That could be a disruption in the market. You've got all kinds of weird debt floating around in the system that could sort of create a financial shock here at any moment. Not to sound pessimistic, I hope that all of these problems won't happen, but to me, you look at these conditions and you just think, okay, prepare for whatever scenario that no one sees coming or that we might be surprised by, and try to keep your head above water, look at the broader context. And even if you're someone who's pessimistic, thinking that there might be some kind of hiccup coming down the pipeline, you can still buy a condo. Don't buy it in an inflated, ultra hot market where you're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars of premium just to be right there.
Yep.
That's kind of a crazy play right now. But if you find a spot that you love, if you're willing to hold it for 10 years or 15 or 20, it's just as good a time as any to purchase something.
Yeah, we'd spoken on, I think 2 podcasts ago to Michael Schatz. He was an advisor for Volks and Engel, and he was just talking about the spread in the US, that what you get in at and then what, how much more it can go is probably there's not that much more there. Whereas in Costa Rica, for like in the States for $500,000, in some areas, it doesn't get you much. Whereas $500,000 here in Costa Rica, depending on where you go, can get you quite a bit. Someone was blown away the other day that we're building luxury treehouse villas in Manuel Antonio for Arenas del Mar at the moment, and they were blown away that we could build one for $600,000. They were like, dude, these are like $3 million, in California, and I'm like, yeah, we're not in California though. That's the thing.
To me, that's the clarity, the clear difference between a real estate market where you've got, I don't know how many billion or trillion dollars fueled through mortgages versus a market that's fueled only by cash.
Yep.
Where, you don't see a location become so crazily overhyped, except to the people who can actually put up that money. And there's just not fluctuations based on that excessive liquidity in the market where, yeah, overnight, $1 trillion of home values can disappear in the US because you've got so much leverage. Down here, it takes, a lot more to shift solid real estate prices that are based on what people could actually afford to pay for a property. In many cases, obviously, there are Costa Ricans buying, there
Yep.
are mortgages for that. You see seller carries and different things happening, but it's somewhat relieving, I feel, to be in a market where you don't see those utterly huge swings in values based on, market collapses or, crazy financial situations.
Well, I mean, it just goes back to the diversification. I mean, Costa Rica is a steady Eddie play here. We don't see the huge peaks and valleys that you see in the US. I mean, we didn't see it much in 07, 08 either. And I don't think we'll see it again in the future just because the people that are buying here are cash buyers and they have that, disposable income in order to do that. But let's just jump on Junquillal 2 seconds, if you don't mind me asking, just because I'm sure a lot of people are like here, they've got no idea where it is. I mentioned in the intro, it's kind of between Tamarindo and Nasada, which are two very well-known areas. But maybe you can give us a little bit of an idea, because I know it's what I'd call a little bit more off the beaten track, which is good. Describe the area. What's it like? What's its access? How far from the airport?
Absolutely. We're an hour and 15 minutes from the Liberia International Airport. One of the great things we have is super solid infrastructure where in a crazy twist of history, our highway was paved before the highway out to Tamarindo. So when I was here in 2009, then as a volunteer, the asphalt came out almost to Juquillal, and it seemed like a crazy decision on the government's part because you had this major tourism hub out to Tamarindo that was still not paved. More recently, we got this semi-asphalt coating from that asphalt down to the actual beach. So we've got great access close to the airport. One of the really great strengths that we have is a solid water resource that hasn't really been overexploited because of the lack of development. The area doesn't tend to really attract international tourism because Junquillal itself doesn't have an amazing surf break. The waves we do have are somewhat inconsistent and quirky. So you've never had that sort of initial impulse to set up a beach surfing village. We also don't have a major national park near us, though we do have a beautiful mangrove. And we're actually an end of the road beach where the spur comes out to Juquillal and stops at that mangrove estuary. So you never pass through here for any reason. And really, if you're in the area to surf, you would most likely go up to Playa Negra, which has, a world famous break, or Playa Avellanas, which has some amazingly consistent waves as well.
Yeah. I mean, describe what type of people live in the area. What's the schooling like, just to give people, because again, even when I talk about developed beach towns in Costa Rica, I'm like, probably our most developed beach town is Jaco. It's maybe 1.2 kilometers long and maybe 2 blocks back at the most. And that's our most developed. So it's nothing like Mexico. It's nothing like Hawaii. It's nothing like the US. So when we talk about Junquillal, it very much is sleepy, right?
Absolutely. You're looking at only, 300 to 500 year-round residents. That's steadily increasing with time. There's one gated community with 75 lots in it. There are probably a total of 75 condos and a few boutique hotels that are 15 rooms and below, some gorgeous places. One of the really nice things we have going for us are some well-run family businesses still in the community. Um, so we have very much, this sleepy town feel. And for a long time, especially because we don't have a private school, it's been difficult for parents, anybody young, to invest in this area. Especially, not only are they generally looking for surf and more activity, something going on, but also that lack of a private school option here in town has really given sort of a flavor to who can relocate here. Now you're definitely seeing more younger people coming in, and they're gravitating a little bit towards having access to schools north of us. But some of them, they have a toddler and they still have maybe 3 or 4 years before they're going to put their kids in school. So many are doing homeschool nowadays, following the effects of the pandemic. We get people who are sort of world educating their kids. So that's sort of opened opportunities for those people who really do have kids, but need to meet that education, question.
How far away is the nearest private school?
We've got about 15, if you're living at the edge of Junquillal and you drive quickly to our Waldorf school,
Yep.
it's 15 to 20 minutes straight towards Tamarindo.
Yep.
That itself is a very alternative kind of education, and a lot of foreign parents might be more interested, or a lot of people end up going to the private schools that are CREA, La Paz, and Educarte. Another one is Journey, Wise. There's all these schools opening up in Tamarindo, and those drives are all 35, 45 minutes north of us.
Yeah.
A lot of parents even do that. You see them putting their kids on a shuttle that comes to the neighborhood and goes all the way up there.
Yep.
But for sure, you've seen in Nosara the absolute explosion of the community with good private schooling options becoming available. Everything in Huacas, Villarreal, Tamarindo, Flamingo, it's supported because there are private schools. And we continue to attract people 45 to 65, a lot who don't have kids, or their kids have grown and left the nest, and it still has somewhat of that flavor to it.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about, again, a lot of people contact me because they're chasing cash flow returns, and I always like to kind of, explore this a little bit, but where do you think that can be found in your market? Meaning, if someone's looking for an investment that's potentially going to produce cash flow, what would your suggestion be for them?
Right now, you could absolutely have a good bet building some kind of medium or small multi-unit long-term rental option. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend necessarily doing it in my neck of the woods.
Yep.
If you moved a little closer to Tamarindo and had a fourplex, 5, 6 units that were livable for expats and sort of, economical, you could absolutely create steady cash flow for yourself, because so many people want to live in this area. They don't have the money to buy, that cash investment.
Yep.
Long-term rental inventory is scarce. And no matter what happens in 2022, I think that, there's not going to be the creation of housing out here fast enough to accommodate the number of people who are coming and will come, over the next 6 months.
I think
so that's sort of what I tell all kinds of people.
I think that's smart. I mean, there is a huge lack, and I've been saying it now for 18 months, of long-term rentals. Everybody chases short-term, and there is a lack of long-term, but it's consistent returns. Yeah. I think you need to find it in a place. Your cost of construction is basically going to cost you the same wherever you build. And I think I always say that to people. So you're going to need to be able to find land that is not that expensive. I mean, that's going to be basically the challenge. I wouldn't say challenge, because it can be found. You're just going to have to hunt around for it.
But absolutely. And that land that is, close to a major thoroughfare to put you in the realm of possibility for people, those higher rent rates, et cetera. I like a lot of properties where, if you can get 300 to 600 meters away from a major road,
yep,
all of a sudden you'll see that, all of that farmland is for sale. in between Tamarindo and Villarreal, there's all kinds of rural farms
Yep.
that, yeah, you could say you're just a 4-minute drive down into Tamarindo, acquire something reasonable, build this kind of investment, and, just wait for your rents to increase with time.
Yeah.
And that would honestly, what I find myself most frequently recommending would be that. And beyond that, trying to steer people into properties that really are just going to be scarce assets going forward. If you can find beachfront titled, land that's worth its weight in gold right now. In our community, only having one gated community, all of a sudden, we've had the last 6 remaining lots go under contract. The people who want to resell there can now increase their premium, a substantial rate. So, if you can find the last piece of inventory in a nice gated community, in a nice location, if you get in at a reasonable price right now, sit next to the beach for a long time and hold it, those can also be great investments as well.
I think that's great feedback. Thank you. Now, let's just go into your personal stuff a little bit. I mean, where is a place in Costa Rica that you like to go? Where do you like to go? I'd like to ask people this now, just because I think it's very interesting to see where the people that live here, where they go.
We really, the only place we've been to multiple times as a family is down in Juquillal. And honestly, we don't have enormous standards. We don't do huge adventure tours, this, that, and the other. It's literally because we have a 4 and 7-year-old right now. He's actually 6, turning 7 soon. And that area is great for us to get away because we physically put 6 hours between ourselves and our work. So that can be really helpful. It's always going to be greener, lusher, and we just happened on a hotel that has a little putt-putt course. It's only half an hour down the road to a giant plain restaurant. There's a ton of tourist stuff. So that's where we end up going down. And, honestly, I see that area has a ton of charm as well. There are more, wild corners down there where you feel like you're in Jurassic Park, where Guanacaste feels like Northern California for half of the year.
Yeah.
So that's where we head off to. And mainly it's based on the quantity of entertainment available to our little kids right now.
Hey, I hear you. I got a 6 and 8-year-old. So again, yeah, I mean, life is basically keep them entertained.
Totally.
So, exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
Matt, I think I asked you this before we started recording, but what have you personally invested in and why?
Oh, and this, really my simple answer is that we've invested everything we have in our home, and primarily because I don't have access to a mortgage or a giant line of credit in the US. So we had to build our original, core of the house using what little money we had left when we came to Costa Rica. I worked for a nonprofit until 2017. So basically we lived on a very humble sort of effort, and everything we've done, the second we get our hands on more cash, we like to put in playgrounds, different stuff to enhance our house. And most recently we did keep a car that, rather than trading in, we're going to start renting privately long-term to select clients and, people we know in the community, because there's a total lack of rental cars right now. And we had a really nice older Toyota that has a lot of life left in it. So we're going to see if that works out with time and might get a couple more cars, absolute max.
I think that's
my level of.
That's a great business idea. That's a great business idea. So, yes. I mean, I was going to ask you, if you inherited $500,000 and had to invest in a business or real estate in Costa Rica, what would you do? But it sounds like you'd buy more cars. But if you didn't buy more cars, what would you do?
If I were specifically thinking of real estate, I would probably do some kind of idea that I had mentioned, get a small plot of land in a good location, put 4 apartments on it that have, really high standard quality, and then sit on those as long-term rentals.
Okay, that's great. Well, Matt, this has been amazing as always, full of information. I'm sure a lot of people will
Appreciate
be
it.
reaching out. Again, Junquillal is a beautiful area for people that are looking for a sleepy, kind of more of a, I would say, authentic Costa Rican experience.
So actually, Richard, I wanted to say before we started, I wrote down on this piece of paper, I was going to ask you, what is the one single word you would use to describe Junquillal
Authentic.
and what we have going for us?
There you go.
The proof is in the pudding.
Exactly.
That was my prediction, and I wanted to write it down because I also wanted to remember that's really what our scarce resource is. It's still a authentic, nice feeling community where people are really good. You know, you build real relationships.
Yep. Which I think is important nowadays and age, because I mean, there are so many people living in cities or just living in places where they don't know their neighbors. But I mean, here in Costa Rica, in a lot of towns, you know, and especially beach towns, is you will know everyone. They will know you. They are there for you, you know, in the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, that's just the beauty of a community.
It is. It really is. And people most frequently comment on the fact that the Costa Rican culture, the lovingness, is their top reason for investing in this kind of community, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've traveled everywhere, and you know, I love coming back to Costa Rica just because of the people. You know, I think it's what makes this country unique. I mean, it has a great canvas with regards to its mountains, you know, but there are a lot of countries around the world that are beautiful. Just no country is like Costa Rica and the people.
Totally, for sure.
Which I put it down to Costa Rica's never suffered. You know, I mean, it's always been pretty chilled here.
Well,
right?
Let's remember that the Spanish colonization plenty of suffering.
True, but I mean, really, I mean, the last thing that really happened here was what, in 46, 47, the Civil War.
Yeah, Costa Rica has suffered a lot less in recent memory. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Well, also, Matt, I appreciate you taking the time out.
Absolutely, Richard.
You have a great weekend, and I'm sure.
Thank you very much. Will do. Absolutely.
Hey guys, another great episode there with Matt. I really appreciate him coming on the podcast and chatting with us. As you can see there, he's a wealth of information. I think for anybody that's looking for more of a authentic, kind of sleepy, you know, beach town, Junquillal is definitely a great location. Again, the infrastructure there is amazing. It has asphalt roads. It has great water. It's south of Tamarindo, north of Nosada, an hour and 15 minutes from the airport. Again, I don't think it's going to see the explosion, you know, that he'd mentioned that Tamarindo and those areas have, because it doesn't have the surf. But I think for anybody that's looking for more of a chilled life, it's definitely a good area and a good long-term investment. And of course, they do have titled beachfront there, which you'll probably not find. I think only like 2% of like Costa Rica's beach, basically coastline is titled, and quite a bit of it is there. But well, anyway, guys, remember, if you want to contact me, you can do info@investingcostarica.com. I've been absolutely crazily busy recently, just helping people make investments here, helping them not make bad investments here, and giving them the reality of the situation. Again, usually people hire me to work for them so that I have an unbiased opinion. I give them the truth. You know, I trust and verify, dot the I's, cross the T's, make sure that everything, that a property that's buying has everything, as well as, you know, give people access to my network as well. So anyway, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, you can do info@investingcostarica.com, and there'll be plenty more episodes to come, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.